Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis this beautiful 16th day of September 2024. Hope everyone is well. Hope you had a restful weekend, but we're really glad that you could join us here. Karibuni sana. For the sake of guys who are new here, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. So we also do have Mitch. He is here. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you, but I will also be looking at the questions, as always, more specifically in the Q&A section towards the very tail end of this webinar. So you can still ask your questions there. Of course, we do prefer that you do ask them in the Q&A section. So we're going to jump straight into it. So we're going to look at the watch list, as we always do. Start off by looking at what we had on Friday in comparison to what we do have today. There isn't much of a change. So if you look at what the watch list was on Friday, moving into today, there isn't much. There's been a lot of fundamentals that have come out. Of course, on Friday, there were a lot of fundamentals that did come out, but there wasn't much in terms of a change. Today morning, wasn't much, apart from just stating that there's a holiday, in Japan, and some Swiss franc news events that we're going to be expecting in about 23 minutes or so. But the watch list is more or less the same. So we're going to be doing the recaps of what happened on Friday as we do look at what the plan is going to be looking like today. So, of course, feel free to take note of what the watch list is going to be looking like for today, but it's more or less the same as what we did have on Friday. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the buy side, USD, Euro, CAD, and then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities like we always do. So the first one, the Swiss franc against Japanese yen. Now, for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can't really see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. And on Friday morning, when we're looking at the charts, you can see that at around 9, price was here. I did point out that the best area to look for yourselves was somewhere within this region here. And you can see the market did actually tap within that region twice. So you just needed to be patient. And you can see that today, of course, the market has attempted to break this region to the downside, which means that we've moved the levels a bit lower, still more or less down within this region here, which is where you can see that the buyers have kept giving the sellers some sort of issues. So we will be watching out for this region right here. So just make sure that you do point out for, watch out for that rather. There's also this region here where we're possibly expecting maybe we could get the market coming back in. Hopefully these buyers can give, a bit of issues and push the market back to the upside. Then we'll be trying to see whether we can get ourselves higher up, maybe somewhere within this region there. And of course, in case that doesn't happen, and let's say the market breaks beneath this region to the downside, then at least on the pullback, we could possibly end up trying to see whether we could get some sales within that region. So do watch out for that. Of course, the region at the top could easily find the market coming back in within there. You never know what could happen. I mean, considering the fact that we do have some Swiss franc news events that could be coming in, could find that maybe they could actually end up giving some pullbacks. But also do make sure that you watch out also for the Telegram channel. Of course, at least the Swiss franc news events are going to be coming out when we're here. So we'll definitely know towards the end of this session. But of course, in case you find that the moves possibly end up happening much later on when we're not together, at least we will keep you informed on the Telegram channel. So just make sure that you do join. There should be a link in the chat box. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't really see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And on Friday morning, price was somewhere here. We did expect to possibly see some action, from the big boys within this region here. Unfortunately, we didn't quite get that. And you can see that the market broke to the downside and also broke this region to the downside. So there were no buying opportunities on this one on Friday. So today, we're going to be back at it. Hopefully, the fundamentals will be in line with where we want to take this one. So do watch out for these three regions right here. So we do have the aggressive down within this region here. So hopefully the market can come back in somewhere as close as possible within here. Then I'll definitely be looking for the buys to go up. But also do watch out for this area. Hopefully if the market can break above this region to the upside on the pullback, you could look for those buying opportunities within this area. But for as long as price is holding somewhere within here, don't end up looking for the buys, because you can't see that there's also an SNR within this area. And the market, to some extent, you're not quite sure whether these sellers within here could react. So you're better off looking for your buys somewhere as close as possible within here, or at least if the market breaks above this region to the upside, on the other side of this region, then you could look for those more conservative or more aggressive buying opportunities within this area right here on the pullback. So just make sure that you do watch out for that, at least so that you don't also end up getting squeezed. Within this area, you could easily end up hitting buys here, but only find yourself, playing some sort of a ping pong game between this SNR here and this SNR here, and it might actually end up getting a bit frustrating. So just make sure that you don't sign up for that. But also remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market breaks, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. But also remembering that if the fundamentals do actually end up shifting, and let's say the Swiss franc does actually end up going to the buy side, then unfortunately the currency pair that we're looking at here will become null and void. In as much as technically speaking, they do look like they still could end up working out. But fundamentally, if we're not back, then there could be a bit of an issue. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You clearly can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative there. You can see that on Friday morning price was somewhere within this region here. Of course, within or so close within some sort of a seller's region. Wasn't a good time to look for the buys. The market did end up coming down. I illustrated that hopefully we did end up getting the market maybe giving us some sort of a price action signal here. Then I could have looked for the buys within there, or if the market did actually end up coming down back in within this region right here. You can see that the market did actually end up bouncing off this region to the upside. So this was a trade setup that I did actually end up looking at. Of course, unfortunately, I couldn't get all the way till the top, but it's still fine. But he actually ended up getting the buy within this region, which was somewhere within this area right here. Went up with it, at least broke this region to the upside. Unfortunately, I wasn't much on the charts on Friday, so I ended up closing the trade somewhere within this region, at around 9 or thereabout. So didn't really want to hold it for the weekend. Can't see that the market to some extent has started to pull back, so wasn't bad. Of course, not really the best of risk to rewards, but as a last trade to end up closing the week, not bad. But I was really expecting these buyers to really possibly bounce off here and push the market to the upside. But unfortunately, that did not happen. So for today, for this one, we're going to be back at it. So we'll be watching out to see whether we can end up still getting buys of the same three areas that we did end up having on Friday. Of course, the market hasn't really moved far and beyond the areas that we had. So the game plan is still more or less the same. But the good thing about it is, if you look at how the buyers did react off this area to the upside, which was quite aggressive, this was good. So hopefully, and you can see that the market is struggling within this region. Hopefully this region right here and the sellers who are sitting here are a bit stunned. But of course, the best thing to wait for is don't look for the buys now. Wait and see if you can get the market breaking to the upside of this region. You can see that there's been a number of breaches to the upside, but none of them has price, sustained to the upside. So if you can get the market actually holding above this region to the upside, then I'll definitely be looking for buys somewhere within this region here, but also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. In as much as the market is ranging within that region, you still could find that maybe during the London session, the market could be on the pullback phase. You still could find the market back in, within these regions right here, at around 4:30, and you could find that the buyers might actually give it another go to the upside. So just make sure that you do watch out for that, but also remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market breaks beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, on Friday, also a currency pair that we did have. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also what possibly would have expected. And you can see the market came down. Unfortunately, there was nothing to tell us to look for buys within here. You can see that the market just came down all the way to within this region. And if you look at the times, it's exactly 4:30 or thereabouts. That's when the market did actually end up taking off from within this area to the upside. So this one is almost similar to what we looked at on the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. The only problem with this one is that this one was a bit tricky in terms of getting the buys, but the good thing about it is there's some good correlation. You can see that the buyers have also come up on this one, and the market is just ranging within this region right here. But the game plan is more or less the same. So you can get the market breaking, and holding above this region to the upside, maybe even some attempts, by the sellers to actually push the market to the downside, which actually end up being unsuccessful, the better. So we could possibly, I will possibly be looking for buys within there to come up, challenge this region, definitely manage within there and see how much more further the market could go. So let's wait and see what happens. But also remember, price can also come back in within this region right here. It's very possible. I mean, we're within a seller's region. The sellers can react, get some strength out of nowhere. The big boys could be looking for those, better prices for them to look for the buys. And of course, in a bid for them to do that, definitely the market will be coming a bit lower. So also just make sure that you do watch out for that. So that's pretty much it for the CHF pairs. So we're going to move on to the USD pairs. So we're going to do the same, mix and match them up with the currency pairs on the buy side. So we'll start off with the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten sales. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, expecting maybe to get the market coming back in within here, something we could read. Can't see that the market just came in just shy of that area, then came to the downside and actually really held within this region, although it's like the sellers just couldn't get past this region right here. And you can see that the market pulled around within that area, and today it's attempted to break to the downside. So we do have this area here, which is the most recent SNR. So that's the reason why we have that. Considering the fact that price was holding within here, it's now breached to the downside. So what we want to see is the market possibly come back, an attempt to maybe even come back to the upside of that area. If that's unsuccessful, then hopefully we should get the market continuing to move to the downside. So be a bit patient on that one. Don't come trigger happy and jump in on the sales just yet. You could easily find the market coming back in, especially if it comes back into the upside and holds above here. You can see to some sort of an extent there was some range that was happening here, which means that you could find some proper selling opportunities happening, even if not all the way up here, but somewhere as close as possible within here. So you don't really want to end up getting caught up in that, especially when the market now comes back into the range and you got the sell, right at the bottom of the range, then it's not really going to seem very good. So for this one, let's see what happens. We've adjusted the level slightly lower, of course, factoring in the story of price. So we do have this region right here, which there's a high probability price could come back to, and also this region, the aggressive area right at the top. So do make sure that you watch out for that, remembering that, of course, if price breaks above that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So the next one, the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Also an illustration of what to expect. Of course, Friday morning price was here. Wasn't a good time to look for the buying opportunities. I did point out you did need to wait. Can't see that the market pulled back in within here, but unfortunately just couldn't lift off this area until today morning during the Asian session. That's when the market has picked up off this region here. But don't chase the buys just because you're seeing the buyers have pushed the market to the upside. There's definitely a region here, and that's the reason why you can't see that the market is more or less a bit stuck within this region. You still could find the market coming back into the downside. So you definitely want to be getting your buying opportunities as close as possible within here. Still could find the pullback coming in. There's a high probability it could. So don't be fooled by the fact that the buyers have pushed this market to the upside here, and you start to think that maybe a pullback might not happen. You will possibly find that maybe there's a possibility it could come back in, even if not all the way till within here, but there are levels within here where you could find the market coming back in. And I mean, you definitely want to get your buys as close as possible within here. If it doesn't, then what you could do is you could wait for the market to break above this area to the upside. Let me see if I can just draw that properly. So if we get the market breaking above here to the upside, then you could definitely get your buying opportunities off this area right here, and you could definitely end up attempting to break this area to the upside. So you can see that there's also a level here, but hopefully we should be able to get past that region, because if these bars do actually end up stepping back into the scene, then hopefully we should get the market really moving to the upside quite well. But just make sure that you watch out also for that level, and of course this region at the bottom. It's a bit of a long shot, but like we always point out, there's no level that's too far when it comes to the Forex market. You could easily find the market back in within that area during the US session, only to actually end up getting some very good buying opportunities within that area. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, on Friday, trying to see whether we could get buys. Can't really see the three regions that I had pointed out. Friday morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was here. Wasn't a good time to look for the buys. And you definitely can't see that the market did actually come back in within here. And you can't see that at 3, price was back in here. During the Frankfurt market open, seems like price was somewhere within there, came down during the London market open, and once again during the US session, to go up. And you can't see that even for this one, the buyers came up aggressive, and you can't see that the market still pulled back in within this region right here to continue pushing to the upside. So for this one, the market to some extent seems like it could be in some sort of a range. So that's the reason why we still have this region here, because we do need a confirmation that the market has actually broken above that region to the upside. So right now, there's technically some sort of a confirmation, because you can see that the market has gone up, seems to be bouncing off this area right here. But hopefully we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. Maybe for the buyers to really launch off this area to the upside, then that would be good. If not, then I guess we'll have to end up timing maybe another pullback, maybe somewhere within this region right here. But of course, if the market comes back into the downside of this area, and let's say when it comes back in within this region, price can't actually move to the upside and actually holds within this area, then that means that if we're back in the range, you could easily find the market and price coming back in within here, and you could find that the proper buys could actually work off that area right there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But it will all be dependent on what happens within that region there. If the market comes back within this area and possibly holds above here, then that would be good. At least if you can't come back into the range, then at least the buys would be good, because at that point in time, we'll have a breach of structure, which is, of course, this range that the market has started to form within this area right here. So watch out for that. And also remember to watch out for the times, like we always point out. I know we sound like a broken record, repeating those times, but it is what it is. So you just need to make sure that you do watch out for those times. You could get some good opportunities, of course, at 10, 3, and 4:30. You could find the big boys coming in at those times. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I have pointed out. Similar levels moving into today. So you can see on Friday, price was somewhere within here. It came down. The buyers attempted to push the market to the upside. So during the London session, could it go up higher? They needed a much better price. You can see price came back in within this region. And of course, you can see that off that area during the US session, the market bounced off this area quite nicely. But unfortunately, when the market broke above here, just couldn't really sustain, really struggled to sustain above that area. But you can see that today during the Asian session, the market has gone to the upside. So for this one, the game plan is more or less the same. But of course, you just need to be a bit patient. Seems like price has done more or less like a full cycle. Friday morning it was there, came down. Right now it's back in within the same region. So for this one, let's wait and see if we can either get the market breaking above this area to the upside. If we get that, then we could look for the buys within here. So you definitely need to give the market a bit of time, to set itself up, because this is not something that's going to happen quite fast. You could find that maybe all through the London session, it might need to go up, come down, then maybe at 3, 4:30, that's when you could find the price here. Or if that doesn't happen, and let's say these sellers do actually react, then you could find that maybe the market might come back in within here. You could also find the market or price back in within this area at around 3, 4:30. So we just need to wait and see what the market tells us. Remember, when it comes to trading, you don't really force your opinion on the charts. And unfortunately, that's the reason why many people or many traders lose. It's because they're trying to impose their opinions on what the markets are going to do. Your trading needs to be very fluid, and that's the reason why I always say, and even when Mitch is presenting, you always hear us say, if the market does this, then we're going to do this. If the market does this, then I will do this. You need to be very fluid. If you end up being very rigid, and you're trying to force your opinion that the market has to do a particular thing, and if it doesn't, then I don't know, you want to do all sorts of crazy things on the charts, then unfortunately you won't be making any headway. So that's the reason why we always see us giving options. So remember, the markets do have a mind of their own. we try to analyze and come up with the best game plan of what we can do, but at least we give the market the leeway, to end up doing what it needs to do, but we are ready for whatever it needs to do. So just make sure that you also do end up factoring that into your trading. So the next one, or the next set of currency pairs are the euro pairs. So we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get some sells. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So on Friday morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here. I did point out that you could look for some trades within here. In fact, I think there was a virtual trade that put somewhere within here where I pointed out that you could look for the sells there, put stops there. The market just spiked up so close within that area. But eventually, you can see that the big sellers came in. But unfortunately, it's like for the rest of the day, they just disappeared. And you can see that the market just fooled around within this region, but eventually came down all the way till within this region here. So for today, for this one, the levels are going to be the same. So, of course, and you can definitely see that the market has not really gone anywhere, past the levels that we had discussed on Friday. So for this one, it's either the market breaks beneath this region to the downside. Right now, the fact that it's just holding at SNR is not really too good because you can't quite tell what the big boys are up to. You could easily find that this could easily be a trap, and millions of traders across the globe possibly jumping in on sales only for them to actually end up getting a shocker where you find the market maybe coming back in within this region or somewhere within there. I think the best sells are possibly still hiding within that area there. So you could find that maybe the market might need to go higher than this, or maybe even a bit higher than this, really trying to grab those really good prices. Some guys call it liquidity grabs or whatever sort of jargon you want to use. But generally, the market could possibly might need to end up coming back in within this area, maybe get some proper prices, come back in, maybe attempt to break this area to the downside. So you could end up finding that. But also on the other hand, the best game plan also that you also can end up having on this one. So this could be one scenario. The other scenario could be if the market breaks, hopefully beneath this region, maybe it needs to break free completely out of this area, because right now we can't quite tell, what the big boys are up to. Hopefully, if the market starts to move to the downside, if the market comes back in within this area right here, then at least at that point in time, we might end up getting a bit more clarity, because if they can't actually break above that region to the upside and the market actually holds to the downside, then you could possibly end up timing yourselves at that point in time, with a bit more confirmation. So let's wait and see what happens on this one. But also remember the red SNR at the top, also a possibility price can come back in within there. So in case it does, at least you will be ready for it. Don't be surprised. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday, trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere down within this area, so at around 910. And we wanted to see the big boys come in. Hopefully, after tapping somewhere within there, we couldn't get that. And you can see that the sellers really struggled within there. The market broke to the upside. Somewhere within this area, no sellers at all. You can see that the buyers really pushed quite aggressively, but after that, it's like the sellers were nowhere to be seen. They've only showed up today morning. And you can see that it's like the buyers first needed to run out of steam. You can see how aggressively they came in within there, and then there's some sort of mediocrity happening within there before the sellers have showed up. But this is good. So, the fact that the market has come back in quite aggressively within this region, this is definitely a sign that maybe there are some big boys who are hiding somewhere within there. Definitely some sort of incitement, because you can imagine when the market now broke to the upside of this area and started to move to the upside, definitely lots of guys were definitely jumping in on the buying opportunities, only for the sellers to really show up like this. So let's see what happens when the market taps back in within this area. Of course, we want to see the market hold within that area, because if it now breaks again to the upside of this area and actually holds within here, then what that means is that this is going to be a probe to the downside, and maybe the market just retested this area with some sort of a probe. And I mean, that happens. On the bigger time frame, on this 15-minute time frame, it's going to seem like a proper probe. But when you look at it on the 4-hour time frame, it's just going to be a week. So we definitely need to wait and see what does end up happening within here. But this is definitely an area of interest. So what we want to see, or what I definitely want to see, is maybe if the market maybe attempts to break to the upside of this area and cannot, and really holds within here. Of course, watching out for the times, could easily find that the market could actually calm down quite nicely. And you could find, especially due to this incitement that's happened there, you could find that the market might actually even end up attempting to come down lower, because maybe the sellers have grabbed, some good amount of cash up there, and that definitely pushed the market to the downside, definitely attempting to break this region to the downside. So let's see what happens. But also remember, like I pointed out, it's an area of interest. If the market breaks above the red SNR to the upside, then unfortunately for me, or for us, definitely then at that point in time, we should stop looking for the selling opportunities, because at that point in time, you're fighting with the market. If you end up taking buys, there's no reason whatsoever why to take buys. I mean, you can definitely end up taking them if you want to, but personally, if the market breaks above there, then I'll look for opportunities elsewhere. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales as well. And you can see these three regions right here that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area here. So you can see at around 9:10, price was here. I wanted to see whether we could get the sellers reacting off here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that. The market came up all the way to within that region for a very quick turnaround. And this is the reason why we always point out, it's always good to wait and see the confirmation. You can imagine all the breakout traders, especially when the market came above here. There's definitely a ninja who hit a buy somewhere within there. They were very confident that that trade was going to work out, but you can see how badly things did end up turning out for them. So the market turned around quick within this region. Definitely something that needed to be read on a smaller time frame, because you can't see this one was too fast. But on a smaller time frame, maybe the 3 minute and the 1 minute, you can't possibly end up reading the slowdown that was happening there. But like we always pointed, and I always tell the guys that we mentor, not every trade that is out there is a trade that you can possibly get. There are some that you can see, like you definitely knew price was gonna come back in within here. But when it shows up, it doesn't show you exactly what you need to see, for you to actually jump in on the trade. It's okay, to let such kind of trade slide. It's not every trade and every opportunity that you see is an opportunity that you can actually jump in on, even if you know that the price is coming back in within, a specific price. And, that's the nature of trading, and you need to be comfortable with that. So you can see that this one, the turnaround was quick. Price came down, breached this region to the downside, but unfortunately, price couldn't sustain there. Seems like these bars within here pushed the market back to the upside. So for this one, the levels are the same. Let's see what happens. Right now, looking for the sells is not really the best of ideas, because you can see that there's this SNR somewhere within here that could give issues. So since we're not too sure if the buyers are going to react off here, you could easily find that they could push the market back, within this area during the London session. Maybe price could be back up here at 3. For the price to come back, maybe even all the way down to within here, who knows? But at least if it comes back at least within here, then you should be doing some sort of money management. In case that doesn't happen and we get the market, hopefully, if those buyers within this region right here give up the ball, the market breaks to the downside and actually holds beneath this region to the downside, then at least we could look for the sells within here. So we just need to be, on standby. Let's wait and see what the market does end up doing. And we'll end up acting based on what the market does end up doing. Remember, you always need to act, not react. When you react, that's the reason why people do end up making bad decisions. Because when the market goes up, you buy. Then when it starts to come down and you're confused and you're thinking that the buys should be working, when it starts to pull back and you didn't have a proper plan, you react and you take out your stop loss. When the market starts to come down, then you enter a sell. Then you're in two trades that actually don't end up making any sense. So make sure that you always act, don't react. And that by having a plan prior, that's the reason why your trading will end up becoming much better. So moving on into the last euro pair. This is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we did end up having on Friday. So we're watching out for sales, and you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. So on Friday morning, price was somewhere within this region right here coming up. We did want to see some sort of a reaction there. You can see that the buyers went up, price came back in quite aggressively, which was good, but it's like the sellers who pushed the market to the downside just disappeared. Hopefully they'll end up showing up today. And you can see that there was an attempt, of the sellers to push the market to the downside, but right now the pullback is coming in. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere within this region here. If we can get the market, maybe even attempting to break above this area to the upside, maybe trying to get some proper prices. But generally, sales within here not bad, because you can see that the market has reacted off there before a number of times. And maybe even with this happening on Friday, this was good. But maybe because we're coming towards the end of the week, that's the reason why you can't see that the sellers were not doing much. Today during the Asian session, they're just getting the week started. It seems like they are somewhere within this region here. So it's better to look for the sales there. In case the market, as it attempts to come down, let's say we get the sell there, comes down and you get issues within here, then it's also not a bad idea to actually manage your trade within this area, because you're not too sure whether the market could start to range, within this area, and you definitely don't really want to be giving up any profits or any gains that you actually make off this area when the market is coming down. So watch out for that. Of course, if the buyers do come up aggressively and they breach above here and push the market and hold it above this area, then we'll have to wait and see if we can get the sellers, the buyers, possibly pushing the market all the way to the top and maybe the proper sales happening off the top, which is going to be somewhere within there. So there's still a possibility of price coming back in all the way at the top there. But remembering that's going to be the last area where we will be looking for selling opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the card pairs. So we're going to mix and match up the Canadian dollar with everything on the buy side. So we're going to start off with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. This one was a bit of a choppy mess. In fact, almost like we had looked at even on the other yen pairs. So you can see on Friday morning, 9 a.m., around that time, 9:10, price was here. It wasn't a good time to look for the sells. Currently, you see that the market did bounce off this area. Unfortunately, didn't get all the way to within there. At least we were ready in case it did. Unfortunately, did not. Price came back in and just held within here the whole day. So there wasn't much in terms of any opportunities on this one on Friday. So for this one, it's more or less the same as what we've seen on the other yens, whereby the market has just breached and is holding below this region right here, but we need more confirmation. The fact that it's just holding within there, I don't think this might be good enough. So you could easily find the market. Hopefully, if it does pull back in within this area, maybe even attempt to break to the upside. I think for me, this would give me more confidence and more confirmation that the market could possibly end up coming down, because right now, even if the market continues moving to the downside, it's like those sellers do need a fresh pair of legs to actually end up running. And that can only happen if we end up getting a pullback that incites the opposite party to possibly end up coming in. So also watch out for this area. I know that I pointed out even on the other yens where the market looks like it's ranging. If it comes back to the upside and actually holds above here, then you could find the price coming back in within there, or maybe even just tapping somewhere within this area. You could find those proper sales happening off somewhere within here, or maybe even at the top there. You could find the market coming in there. And personally, I always prefer, the pullbacks, especially when they come in, something that is visible, especially on the 15-minute time frame. For me, I usually like that better because it has incited the opposite party to come in, because it's very clear, it's very visible. When you end up getting those shallow pullbacks, personally, I've never had a very good experience with them. So, I always like something that is visible for everyone to see, that the market is actually shifting direction. When they actually start chasing in the opposite direction, then at least for me, I see it as at least this, the opposite party is coming in, so we can at least end up doing some sort of business with them. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can't see, like for this one, even just picking up from, what I was talking about in terms of the pullback. The market went up, came down. You can see that when the market pulled back in, because you can take this as a whole pullback, this has definitely incited a lot of people, to definitely start jumping in on selling opportunities. And they've forgotten about the fact that the market had actually come in aggressive, because many people, when they're attempting buys within these regions, when the market starts to pull back in, then they actually end up getting stopped out. The human mind, especially when it comes to trading and emotions, has a tendency of thinking you're in the wrong direction. So when they try buys and they're not working, they start to think that, okay, maybe the market is not for buys, it's for sells. And when that shift does end up happening, That's where the money spot is. So for me personally, that's something I definitely like to take into consideration. So you can possibly also end up taking that into consideration in your trading. Take pullbacks that you can read quite well. So for this one, we did expect the buyers to come in on Friday. Unfortunately, there were no buyers there. And you can see that we're expecting price to come back in within this region here, but there wasn't much of a reaction. But today, off the same area, you can see that the buyers have finally showed up. And these are definitely the big boys. There's no doubt about that. So let's see what happens. Right now, the market has just broken above this area to the upside. Hopefully, we can get the market pulling back in within this area here, and we still end up getting a hold to the upside. At that point in time, I'll be looking for buys, because the main thing that I also end up looking at when I'm taking trades is, number one, location. You can see that within this area, there's a minus SNR. It's not something that's been pointed out, because I mean, we can't have all the levels here, but you can definitely see that the market has, tapped off this area to the upside. Right now, the fact that it's coming back in within here, you can see that even with this week coming up, you could also end up considering this as part of this region right here. You're not too sure whether the market could react off there. So the buyers are definitely here. I mean, taking the buy here, the stop loss would still have to be somewhere within here. If you can end up getting, or if I can end up getting a much tighter stop loss, the better, so that the risk to reward coming up does actually end up making way more sense. Because if you hit the buy here, yeah, you still possibly could find the market coming up, but you also could end up running the risk of the market just bouncing off this area and possibly coming back in within this region right here. You could find some proper buys still happening off this area. So you just need to be patient. Always watch out for where is the location in terms of price and what factors might actually end up working against you. So let's see what happens. I mean, if the market doesn't end up coming back in, there are other opportunities that we're looking at. So there's no point of chasing, because I mean, within this region right here coming up, we're only looking at 11 pips. It's not really worth the chase. You're better off waiting for price to come back in within here. At least that will give us, more room to the upside and more pips to play with to the upside. So let's see what happens. Of course, if the pullback doesn't happen, I mean, if the market breaks above here and the buyers do sustain, then still could look for the buys higher up within that region without necessarily having to chase. But even just going back to it real quick, there's also a possibility on this one, by the way, price can also come back in within this region. Reasons that should be very clear, especially to guys on the one-on-one. The market can easily still come back in within this area, especially if it starts to range within here. So you still could find the market still coming back in at the red SNI, and you could find some proper buys happening within this region right there. So also do keep an eye out for that, and also do watch out for the times, 10, 3, 4:30, like you always point out. So moving on into the next Great British Pound or the Canadian dollar pairs. This is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive conservative, semi-aggressive conservative here. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. Sellers had come in quite hot off this area right there. You can see that they gave buyers a bit of an issue. Price came back in within here. I was expecting price to come back in within this area, give us some sort of a turnaround. But you can see that during the US session, that's when the market did actually end up taking off to the upside. The buyers just showed up and just sustained price within there, some sort of, a pullback coming in. But today, you can see that during the Asian session, the market has actually broken above this region to the upside. It's a bit of a tricky situation in terms of getting the buys within that area right there in the middle, but possibly reading this mess on a smaller time frame. But today you can see that the market has broken to the upside. This is good. Remember, I always point out that it's good to wait for the aggressive breaches to the upside. So this is good, but don't chase, because if you hit the buy here, it might not really be the best of ideas. You still could find the market coming back in within this area right here. And you could find that maybe when the market might attempt to come back into the downside of this area. So let's just wait and see what happens. When the market comes back in within here, and you get the buys there, at least wherever or however high the market goes on this move that's currently happening, that could be the next level that you should be targeting on your way up. So just be a bit patient. Don't chase. This one, I mean, if you didn't get the buys lower, then you're better off looking for opportunities elsewhere as you wait for the pullback to actually end up happening. So also watch out for these two other areas. Also possibilities, price can come back in within there. Slight possibility, but of course, if it does, then at least you should be ready for it. So last but not least, in terms of the currency pairs, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. You can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. Friday morning, price was somewhere within here. We did want to see what was going to happen within this area right here. Unfortunately, the buyers did quite fully come in. On Friday, price came in a bit lower, just shy of that area right there. You can see that the buyers did show up to some extent, something almost similar to what we've seen with the rest of the Canadian dollar pairs. And you can see that the market did actually hold within here today during the Asian session. The buyers have continued to push to rally up. So for this one, the market is backing within a sort of seller's region at the top right there. So don't look for the buying opportunities right now. Wait and see if you can get the market hopefully breaking above this region to the upside. If we end up getting that and get the market pulling back in within there, and some good confirmation that price is actually holding above this region to the upside, then you could look for your buying opportunities at that point in time. But also give these sellers the benefit of doubt. Consider they've reacted before and pushed the market back to the downside within this region. They still can't do that. So you could find that maybe even during the London session, price could be on the pullback phase, coming back in within here. And you could find that maybe at around 3-4.30, price could be back in within here, and you still could get some proper buys. So just need to be a bit patient on this one. So also remember the red SNR. So that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So hopefully you guys have taken note of that. So we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities. And you can see there's also not been any change or any changes on those ones. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative there. Price was somewhere within this region here. Did point out that we did possibly want to see a pullback coming in within this area here. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Or maybe the market actually breaking and holding above this region to the upside. But you can see that the market just pulled around within this area for pretty much most of Friday. Then, you can see that at 4:30, which was during the New York Stock Exchange, the buyers did actually start to show up. Price went up, nice hold within this region right here, and the market attempted to go to the upside. Not really the best of moves to the upside, but you also possibly did need to read that detail more on the 3-minute time frame, because you can't see that here. It just seems like some weeks, but definitely, of course, on the 3-minute and the 1-minute, there's more to the story. So for this one, for today, we're gonna still be looking for buying opportunities. Remember, when it comes to the indices and the commodities, we're always fully technical. In as much as the fundamentals can actually end up playing a part here and there, but we're mostly technical. So for as long as we're holding above this red SNR, we should be looking for buying opportunities. So these are the three areas for today. There's a possibility price could come back in still within this region right here. Can't see that the bar did push up aggressively on Friday off there. So there's a possibility price could come in there. There's definitely a minus SNR. Within this region right here where the market broke to the upside, because you can't see that the market tapped within this area from beneath a number of times, broke to the upside, and you can see that right now it's just sitting on this region right here. But you could find that the fact that it's attempted to go up higher off this area and has not really been successful, especially breaking this area to the upside, there's a possibility you could find that it might break to the downside of this area. But you still could find some buys within here. But you also need to be highly skilled in terms of how to go about it. Because if you're not careful, you could easily end up getting into some sort of a mess within this region right here. I think if I were to advise, the best buys are definitely somewhere within this region right here. So let's see if we can get that. Definitely, if we get the buys here, the risk to reward to the upside will be much better. Because if you get the buys within here, the ceiling is right somewhere within this area right here, which means that to get some proper risk to reward within this area, like I pointed out, unless you're a real sniper on the charts, that could be a trade that could give you a bit of issues. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember the red SNR, for as long as we're holding above that, the buyers should be to look for buying opportunities. If you get sells, you still can't take them, but just be well aware that the sells are counters. So moving on into the next one, this is the US 30 or the Dow Jones, WS 30 on MT5. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. Can't clearly see the three regions that I had pointed out on Friday. We were waiting to see if we could get the market breaking above this region to the upside. Consider the market was just sitting within this area, but all of a sudden at 4:30, you can see that the buyers did actually end up pushing the market to the upside. Not something very clear on this time frame. Maybe on a smaller time frame, but nonetheless, at least in terms of the buyers, we did expect the buyers to come in. It's just that we just couldn't quite read very well what was going to happen here to really time the buys. But you can see that the market did really end up taking off from within that area to the upside quite aggressively. So for today, we'll wait for the pullback. You can see that the market hit a region somewhere within there. So right now, some sort of a mess happening, definitely a moment of confusion for very many people, especially the guys who are chasing the buys, especially when the market was moving up higher. Right now, they've just been thrown into panic and confusion. So let's wait and see if we can get the market coming back in within here. I think some good buys could be here. This doesn't seem like a major level on this time frame, but if we end up going up a higher time frame, you'll see that somewhere within this region, the market has actually tapped within that area a number of times. So definitely expecting to see whether we could get the market pulling back in within there, some sort of a retest after the breach and a proper one. This one was just a quick one, so a proper one, especially after a nice pullback, maybe you could get the market coming back in within this region. And if we end up getting something like that and the market is back in within here at around 4:30, then I think that could be a really good buying opportunity. So just watch out for that. But also remember the red SNR. I mean, if price is all the way back at the bottom, at that time, then you also could look for those buying opportunities at that point in time. So moving on into the second last thing, which is silver. So for silver, on Friday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So you can also see some sort of an illustration. So as price was breaking to the upside, somewhere within here, remember I pointed out that if the market comes back in within this area, then you could look for the buys. And if you look at the times around 4:30, price did actually end up pushing to the upside. So this one wasn't such a bad buy. In any case, you can also end up seeing the nice pullback coming in on this time frame. So it wasn't as quick as what happened on the Dow. Of course, if you got buys within there, I mean, even if you had your stops within there to actually push to the upside, you can see that those buys did really end up working out quite well. So for this one for today, don't chase the buys. Let's see if we can get the pullback coming in. So there's a possibility you still could find the market coming back in within this area right here. You can see that the buyers have really started to slow down within this area, which means that a lot of people are definitely jumping in on the buys. So we need more liquidity to come in. So some people need to shift buyers. So you could find that the market could start to come down. Hopefully, if it comes down, especially somewhere within here, then that would be good. So let's just wait and see what does end up happening. You could find the market back within this area at around 4:30. If that happens, I think this would be the best area to look for the buys. But alternatively, also watch out for what happens within this area. You could find that maybe the market might not come in all the way to within this area. You find the market coming back in within, there are quite a number of minor SNRs within these areas right here. So in case at least we do get the market coming back in within there, maybe the buyers do actually now end up coming in with a bit more strength compared to what they're doing right now, then that might be good. If you get a hold above here, then you could look for the buys, but you'll now have to end up watching out for the regions much, much higher that could possibly end up giving you issues. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but definitely the best buy is somewhere within that region there. So last but not least, like Mitch loves to call it, the fan favorite, gold, but also the one that has broken the most number of hearts and also sent the most number of people packing. So for gold on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can't see the three regions right there that I have pointed out. Remember, the bias was for as long as we were holding above this area right here, the bias was to look for buying opportunities. Friday morning, price was somewhere within here. A bit of a mess that was happening within here. But of course, I pointed out that it was not really the best area to look for the buys unless we got something we could read. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the pullback. Personally, I was really waiting to see whether I could have gotten the price somewhere within here. But you can see that there were quite a number of attempts, by the sellers to really push the market to the downside, which were unsuccessful. And of course, once the market took off to the upside, unfortunately, it didn't come back in within this area. And also remember, for gold, we are at the highest we've ever been. So, I mean, if the market continues to move up higher, we don't really have much of a reference point of where we're heading. Like, we're just headed to oblivion. Like, we don't really know where we're heading. So plotting the levels as we continue moving. So that's the reason why I was really hoping we could have gotten the pullback coming back in within here, because that would have given, a sure idea of where to end up targeting if you end up getting the buys. So for this one, the market went up, made a new high, came back down, bounced off there. You can see that that high was really challenged a number of times. And today, the market has actually broken this region to the upside. But the level that we're using is somewhere within this region, because we're not too sure whether this is a true SNR. Like I'm pointing out, we've never been here before, so we don't know what to expect. So for this one, let's see if we can either get the market pulling back in. I mean, if it doesn't, we get some sellers coming in, then maybe we could end up possibly trying to see whether we could get buys within here to possibly end up attempting to push up much higher. So that could be one scenario. Of course, I would really hope that we end up getting a much deeper pullback, because at least if it's something that, we can read on the 15-minute time frame, like I pointed out, the better. So if we can get the price coming in as close as possible within this region here, even if it doesn't come in all the way till within there, I mean, there's an SNR within here, and also details you can possibly read on the smaller time frame within this region. But generally, somewhere as close as possible within this area right here, I think might not be too bad in terms of looking for the buys. And of course, remember that this is going to be the last area where we're going to be trying to see whether we can get those buying opportunities. If the market does actually end up breaking beneath that region to the downside, then at that point in time, we'll just have to start looking for the sells after we do end up getting some confirmation that the market is actually holding to the downside of that region. So I hope that is clear for everyone. So that's what the game plan is going to be looking like. This is our watch list. Hopefully, we've also taken note of everything we've discussed. Some people say that I talk too fast, but at least there's a recording on YouTube. If you want to slow me down, then you can definitely go there and rewatch. But I really hope that everyone has gotten much value out of this session today. So I guess we can end up looking at the Q&A section real quick. So I see Robert Muriuki there. Good to see you, Robert. You're saying asante sana, John, for all the insight you and the team gives us. Jazi tu ndio kidogo. Well, I know that was going to come. At least we did end up winning a game yesterday, but we'll just have to wait and see how we end up finishing. Unfortunately, we start off very well, but we finish very poorly. So let's hope that this time around things are going to be much, much better. But good to see you here, Robert. So I see Patricia Mwangi there saying, hi, John, display GU. For GU, we're basically trying to see whether we could get some buys, but we'll wait and see whether we can end up getting some pullbacks coming in. You don't really want to end up chasing the buys there, because you're not too sure where to put your stop loss. And also, even if you end up putting your stops within here, the price could easily come back in and it could get stopped out. So that's the reason why I pointed out that we do need to wait. Either the market could come back into the downside and we could get the market coming back in, somewhere within here. And you can see that the market has been ranging. So if it does end up coming back in, the best area to look for the buys is definitely somewhere down within this region right here. So let's wait and see. But also right now, based on the fact that the market is going up, I mean, if it doesn't come back into the downside and actually hold beneath this region, then we'll just have to wait and see. We can actually end up getting a proper confirmation that the market has held above this area to the upside, and hopefully that does end up happening, then we could possibly end up pushing to the upside. To some extent, this could be some sort of confirmation, but you don't really want to end up chasing the trade high up within that area. Just in terms of not really being the best entry and also possibly getting the best risk to reward. So hopefully that sorts you out, Patricia. So I'm not really seeing any more questions. So I guess everything is clear. But like I pointed out, in case anything is not, you can always rewatch the recording on YouTube. You can either slow us down or, also increase the speed if you just want to peruse through it quite fast, or possibly skip within areas that you possibly missed out. You can also end up doing that. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in the morning for the daily analysis. Remember, if you do get any setups, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. Us guys are more than happy to see what you're up to. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. And of course, we'll be here to celebrate your wins. And of course, if we do need to give you a bit more advice on what you can do based on what you send us, then we'll also be giving you that information as well. So I just remembered we had some Swiss franc news events that were coming out. So there were some PPIs coming out at 9:30. Seems like the numbers are better. So there's a possibility we could be shifting the Swiss franc to come to the buy side, but we'll also be waiting to see whether we'll get that strength coming in. So just make sure that you watch out for the Telegram channel, but we could find some strength coming in, but we'll have to look at it with the team and we'll definitely give you that information. So just make sure that you watch out for the Telegram channel. So with that, happy trading, guys. Guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. For the guys in the AMP, guess we'll see you in a bit. So happy trading, guys, and bye for now. God bless.